And hello from Mortimer. I'm here trying to find things that you can do over the next few days with the family throughout the festive season. They say it is the season for winter walks. So how to walk off that turkey, of course, the Christmas pudding, the chocolate log. Well, I've got the perfect idea. Shall we find out a little bit more as we stand outside the church here in Mortimer from Parish Councillor Nick Carter. We also have Carolyn Owen from the Mortimer Local History Group. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Nick, first of all, tell me about this trail that you've put together.
Yeah, so we worked with the Local History Group. We work on community projects, and this is one of them. They have all the knowledge, which they've built up over the years. They're an active group. And really, we've just taken that information and produced it in a document that people can pick up from the local shop and go on a walk, as you say, for 3 kilometres. There's 2 walks, both start from the middle of the village. And it's just a way of discovering things that not everybody would have known about the village. And we're also finding people are coming forward with new information. And I suppose at the moment we're just challenging whether it's true or not.
Local legend or fact. Carolyn, where are we headed to next? Because we're going to go and see some of these things that you can see on the trail with your friends and families. I should say there are 2 of them, in fact. But where are we headed next?
Well, next we're going to head down towards Mortimer Railway Station, which is in itself quite a famous station, not just in this area but also nationally. And it's sufficiently famous that you have, for example, models that you can buy in Germany to build, so you can have your own replica of Mortimer Railway Station.
I love the idea of that. I can't wait to meet more people. And we've come along to the station in particular because Nick was telling us about the Doctor Who link.
Yes, it was featured in a 1972 episode, Planet of the Spiders, and ironically I will have been watching that, and we're looking literally at the view where Sarah Jane Smith got out of the car in the MG and drove up the road to go and sort out the spider problem.
There you go, Doctor Who fan, come along, get your own picture. There is much more to the history of this station though. Carolyn, tell me more.
Well, this station is very important because it's part of Brunel's link line between Reading and Basingstoke, so it was important in carrying goods from the Midlands down to the ships of Southampton. Mortimer basically is a village of 2 separate parts. The old part was built from about Saxon times upwards, down where there was water at the bottom of the valley. Come 1800, the common, which was no use, gorse, trees, things like that, was divided up in what was known as the Enclosure Act, and little bits were given to each farmer. It was no use to anybody, and come about 1880, it was discovered that the railway had brought the possibility of people living in Mortimer and commuting into Reading. Hence, a lot of speculative builders started building on the land.
And so we're here next to the Red House and another building. Tell me why we're standing here. What's important about these buildings?
Well, the importance about Red House is particularly who lived here, and Dr. Ian Crichton and his wife. Dr. Crichton was a very interesting person who lived in Mortimer. His interest was of caddisflies, little tiny larvae of insects that live in water. He got this during the Second World War when he was a prisoner of war in Stalag Luft 3 in Germany, right in the middle of the forest. His training as a marine biologist didn't do very much good for him, so he decided that perhaps he would start learning about caddisflies. I should also point out that Dr. Crichton was fairly infamous, or famous depending, in that when he came out of the aeroplane with his parachute, he landed not particularly safely but broke his leg and managed to walk for 2 days with his broken leg in an attempt to escape from the prisoners.
Goodness me, so much local history around. Tell you what, we'll find out some more incredible facts about the history in this area. And if you're walking on by, or in fact driving, there's been quite a few tutors. Do make sure you stop by and let us know a bit more. And Nick is here with me. Nick, where have you brought me next?
So we're now at the old Methodist Chapel, which is a home now, but the graveyard is still in use on Drury Lane.
Right. What's the history behind this site, Carolyn?
Well, the history basically is that the ranters, as they were known, met in various areas of the common. They didn't have a building and decided that perhaps they had enough money, £245 in total, in 1866-67 to build themselves a chapel.
Wow. As we were hearing, it's no longer used as a chapel. It's actually a residential home. And we've knocked on the door, Peachy. I'm really sorry if I've gone and interrupted Robert in his morning routine. Good morning.
Good morning.
What an incredible building to live in, an old chapel.
It certainly is. It's a beautiful place to live in.
Why did you decide that this was something? Because the building looks amazing, but you're surrounded by a graveyard.
It's very quiet, though, isn't it?
What was it about the building that you love so much?
It's just got such character. I mean, you come past it, and all locals come past it as well, and it's known as a very obvious landmark. It's the top of the hill when the people go running, and, from here it's downhill whichever way you go. It's fantastic.
And in terms of, the architecture of the building, what are the various bits that you particularly enjoy living here?
Well, if you look on one side of the building, we've still got some lancet windows which actually run through 2 floors of the building. Still makes it look like a church, but it feels very much like a home.
It is absolutely beautiful. Thanks for letting us interrupt. Nice Christmas lights, by the way, outside. Is this your handiwork, getting them all up?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, don't forget you can get hold of this trail yourself. All you need to do is head to where?
Go to the Baobab in the village centre and you pick it up, or you can download it from the Parish Council website, or go online and search for Mortimer Heritage Trail, and there's 2.
I've been brought to another location. In fact, I've been taken to the doctors, but I'm not ill. Carolyn, explain why we're here.
Well, we've come here to Glenap Grange, which has a very interesting history. Old Dr. Hill, as the locals will call him, was on honeymoon with his wife in Scotland, and he met there a doctor from Mortimer who wanted to sell up. They suggested that perhaps Dr. Hill might like to buy it. He did. He bought the practice. He came here and he named his house Glenap to remind him of his honeymoon in Scotland.
That's why we've got this kind of Scottish connection happening here. And in fact, there's another connection with you, Nick.
There is, amazingly, yes, because the house I live in fact, the old Dr. Hill and so-called young Dr. Hill moved to my house after they left the Glenap Grange, which is all very fascinating.
What I'm learning is that there's a real community space here, and this is a good point too to talk about something I mentioned earlier, and that's a link between Mortimer and Huntly and Palmer.
Yes, indeed, Huntly and Palmer's, or rather Mr. Palmer, lived very close to us in Wokefield. And when he died, his grandchildren decided it would be a nice gesture to buy a piece of land and give it as a community football play area for the village, which they did, which is a very nice thing to them done. All went well until the local team decided they'd like to join one of the leagues. The problem was that the piece of land they chose and had been given to them, the goalpost at one end was in Hampshire, at the other in Berkshire, and neither county wanted them.
Oh, tell me it was resolved.
It was resolved. I think it was resolved so that Berkshire agreed, perhaps reluctantly, that they would allow a goalpost in Hampshire, and all has been well since.
I love that. I really do love that. I am standing in the most glorious church where, think about a fabulous church and imagine being given permission to stand up by the altar. Well, that's exactly what's happening to me here in Mortimer. And Carolyn is here with us. She's from the Local History Group. Tell me where we are, Carolyn.
Well, we're in St Mary's Church in Mortimer. This is probably the 6th church to be built on this site, and possibly contains one of the most interesting finds, possibly in Berkshire. That is a Saxon tomb, or more precisely, the cover for a Saxon tomb.
I was about to say, because I was expecting to see it perhaps raised from the ground. However, this piece of stone is up on the wall.
It is indeed, yes. It was found when the last church was actually built, found in the rubbles of the one that they demolished.
Do we know anything more about it?
Yes, it's fairly unusual, and it has an inscription all the way round the outside of the coffin, which is in Latin, and tells us that the man who wrote the inscription was called Toki, and it also tells us the date in which the man was buried, and his name, and a little prayer for his soul.
Oh, I love that. And isn't it amazing that it's hidden here amongst the pews up at the altar in the church?
Well, it is indeed, but it's probably better than being hidden in the ground.
At least it was discovered. We are talking about this today. If people have just listened in, it's because there is a new festive trail, winter trail, that you're encouraging local people to go on to learn about the history and the many things that here and around Mortimer. It's your final chance in 30 seconds to encourage them to head on down to the cafe and pick up a programme. Why should they do that?
Because it's surprising how much history there is in Mortimer, how many things have happened. We don't have big houses, we don't have big lakes, we don't have anything spectacular, but we have got lots and lots of little interesting things.
Thanks for getting up this morning so early, standing in the cold with me, sharing some of the little aspects, as we've only really scratched the surface of what you can go and explore here if you head on the trail. And also, I'd like to say, first for me learning the facts, first for you, first selfie this morning, Carolyn.
It was indeed, yes. I had a selfie taken, never before.